What happens when a modern economy no longer has enough workers to support itself? For more than 20 years, Europe has quietly lived with fewer children than it needs to replace each generation. The total fertility rate across the continent has hovered well below the replacement threshold, meaning that each new cohort entering the labor force is smaller than the one before. This is not the result of a single crisis or economic downturn, but the outcome of a long period in which too few children have been born to sustain the working-age population. In many countries, the average age at which women have their first child now approaches 30, narrowing the window for larger families and making any future rebound in births much less likely. Even as daily life appears stable, the demographic foundation beneath Europe's economies is quietly eroding. Family policies, no matter how generous, take years or even decades to affect the size of the workforce. By the time firms begin to notice a shortage of applicants, the underlying cause has already been set in motion years earlier. Labor scarcity is not a distant threat. It is already written into the population structure, shaping the future before most people realize it. In Germany, the world's fourth largest economy, the shortage of workers has shifted from abstract forecast to daily reality on the factory floor. Manufacturing firms, from automotive giants to family-owned suppliers, report thousands of skilled positions unfilled month after month. The Federal Employment Agency's surveys show vacancy rates in manufacturing, logistics, and engineering have climbed to levels unseen in decades. Technical roles such as CNC operators, welders, and toolmakers now take more than 6 months to fill. That is triple the time required for most office jobs. In construction, the bottleneck is just as severe. Projects slow or stall as companies struggle to recruit electricians, pipe fitters, and machine technicians. Even with strong order books, many firms cannot ramp up production because there simply are not enough trained hands. The logistics sector, which keeps Germany's exports moving, faces a chronic shortage of certified drivers and warehouse staff. For the Mittelstand, the backbone of German industry, these gaps translate directly into lost output and missed opportunities. The training pipeline has thinned, with fewer young people entering apprenticeships and an aging workforce heading toward retirement. The result is a structural mismatch. The work is there, but the workers are not. This is not a question of weak demand or temporary disruption. It is a sign that the demographic deficit is now constraining one of Europe's most advanced economies in real time. Italy's shrinking population stands out not just in national statistics, but in the daily rhythm of its towns and regions. The country recorded 355,000 births against 652,000 deaths in 2025, with the population falling to just under 59 million and the median age reaching 47.1 years. Nowhere is this more visible than in the south and on the islands, where the loss of young adults has become a defining feature. Provinces like Molise, Calabria, and Sicily have seen their populations contract by over 5% in a decade. In these places, empty classrooms and shuttered schools are no longer rare. Council records from small towns show primary schools closing after enrollments drop below 10 pupils. Shops and pharmacies struggle to stay open as foot traffic dwindles. Local governments face the slow erosion of their tax base, making it harder to maintain basic services. Meanwhile, regions like Trentino, South Tyrol in the north hold on more successfully, with higher birth rates and more stable communities. The contrast is stark. Some areas still manage to attract families and investment, while others are left with an aging population and a sense of gradual abandonment. The result is not only fewer residents, but a weakening of the networks and institutions that make everyday life possible. Hospitals across Europe now face a reality where the number of patients needing care rises as the pool of available staff thins. In Germany, the shortfall is stark. Projections show a need for hundreds of thousands more nurses by the mid-2020s, with nearly 1 in 10 positions unfilled in some regions. France's public hospitals report a nurse vacancy rate above 10%, and even in the UK, where the National Health Service has long been a point of pride, nurse shortages have reached 7.5%. These numbers are not just statistics. They translate into longer waiting times, more frequent delays, and fewer hands at the bedside. Since 2020, average hospital waiting times for elective procedures in France have stretched to months, while in the UK, over half of patients now wait more than 3 months for specialist care. Shifts grow longer, and rosters are patched together day by day. For many nurses, the job means covering double shifts or relying on colleagues from abroad to fill critical gaps. In Germany and France, more than 13% of all doctors are now trained overseas, with nearly 1 in 10 nurses in Germany coming from abroad. This growing reliance on foreign-trained staff is essential to keeping wards open, but it also raises difficult questions about the global competition for caregivers. The demand for care cannot be postponed or automated away. When the workforce shrinks, the strain lands directly on the people who are left, both those who give care and those who wait for it. Europe's physical economy depends on people who build, repair, and keep essential systems running. Construction sites across the continent now face vacancy rates of 7 to 9% for skilled workers, according to the European Construction Federation. The shortage stretches project timelines and inflates costs as companies compete for a shrinking pool of electricians, pipe fitters, and machine technicians. Major infrastructure projects, like the Stuttgart 21 rail hub or the Fehmarn Belt Tunnel, have reported delays and budget overruns directly linked to the difficulty of assembling full crews. The challenge extends beyond new construction. Utilities and public works rely on maintenance teams to keep water, power, and transport networks safe. When vacancies go unfilled, routine repairs are postponed, and minor problems can escalate into costly failures. Freight movement, the backbone of Europe's supply chains, is also at risk. In early 2024, Germany's DB Cargo suspended several night freight routes, citing a shortage of certified train drivers. Each missing worker is a weak link in the chain, turning labor scarcity into a risk for entire systems that underpin daily life. The consequences are visible in slower project delivery, rising prices, and growing vulnerability of infrastructure that was once taken for granted. Immigration stands as the fastest tool European governments use to fill urgent labor gaps. The EU Blue Card program brings in highly skilled workers from outside the bloc, focusing on sectors with the sharpest shortages. Germany's Skilled Immigration Act, revised in 2023 and 2024, speeds up entry for engineers, IT experts, and healthcare professionals. Italy's annual quota scheme set precise numbers for non-EU workers in agriculture, construction, and care. These policies direct talent to where it is needed most, favoring applicants whose skills match persistent shortages. Fiscal outcomes depend on who arrives. High-skill migrants often pay more in taxes than they draw in services, helping to support public finances and pension systems. Low-skill inflows, while easing shortages in agriculture or basic services, tend to deliver weaker fiscal results over time. Migrants cluster in cities and regions with jobs, housing, and existing communities, leaving shrinking rural areas with little new inflow. Immigration relieves immediate pressure, but it cannot fully offset decades of low birth rates. The gains are real, but uneven and incomplete. Europe's pension systems stand on a simple bargain. Today's workers fund today's retirees, trusting the next generation will do the same. But as the number of working-age adults shrinks and the population over 65 grows, that equation begins to break down. In the euro area, the old age dependency ratio has already reached 35% and is projected to climb sharply in the decades ahead. Italy faces the steepest slope, with nearly 40% of its population aged 65 or older by 2025. Germany is on track for its own reckoning. Its contributor to pensioner ratio is expected to fall from under 2 today to just 1.3 by 2050. To hold benefit levels steady, Germany's government has committed 185 billion euros over 15 years. Yet even this massive outlay only buys time. Every year, the cost of supporting retirees grows heavier on a shrinking tax base. Policymakers face a narrowing set of choices: raise taxes, delay retirement, lower benefits, or borrow more. None are easy. The math is relentless. Without enough new workers, the promises of the pay-as-you-go system become harder to keep, and the pressure on public finances mounts long before the full demographic wave arrives. Europe's labor shortage is not an isolated phenomenon. Across East Asia, the same demographic forces are at work, often with even greater intensity. South Korea now records a total fertility rate of just 0.8, the lowest in the world, and well below the level needed to sustain its workforce over time. Japan's experience offers a glimpse of what comes next. As the population ages and the pool of working-age adults contracts, the country has turned to technology to fill the gap. Nursing homes in Tokyo now deploy dozens of robot models to assist with lifting, bathing, and monitoring residents. Yet even with government support and rapid adoption, robots can only supplement, not replace, the human presence required for complex care. Meanwhile, North America's economies are buffered by higher rates of immigration, but this protection is uneven. In the United States, nearly 1 in 5 workers is foreign-born, and in Canada, projections suggest that immigrants could make up almost half the workforce within 2 decades. Still, shortages persist in sectors like skilled trades, healthcare, and logistics. The old certainty that the next generation will be larger than the last no longer holds. Across much of the developed world, the question is shifting from whether labor shortages will appear to how societies will adapt when there simply are not enough people to keep the wheels turning. The era of ever-growing workforces is ending. Europe shows what happens when demographic reality collides with economic expectation. Jobs remain, but people do not. The real challenge isn't preventing shortages. It's reimagining how society functions when there are simply not enough hands left to keep it running. Share your thoughts below. Every crisis begins as a crack, small enough to ignore until it isn't.